Robin Wall Kimmerer in her book, and frankly our children and youth this morning, made me realize with some humility that while I thought I was a smart child, I really wasn't. In fact, I was kind of a brat. One of the things that I remember from my childhood was I would go to what in my Islamic traditions was Sunday school for us, and would go and take classes on the Islamic traditions, take classes on Muslim history and Arabic, and would take classes on the Holy Quran. And part of that work was to memorize surahs or chapters in the Holy Quran. I hated that. I was the kid that sat in the back of the classroom and just tried to hide and not memorize those surahs. Fortunately, some of them stuck. One of them is a surah that many Muslims know, whether or not we try to forget it, because it is one that we say often throughout the day. And that surah is one that is called Al-Fatiha, or the opening. It's a surah that's said at the beginning of every prayer, at the beginning of all the prayers, and throughout the day. I say it when I'm about to go on a flight because I'm terrified of flying. But I didn't understand the true meaning of that chapter until I started seminary. When I was in seminary, I had an Islamic professor who taught me the concept of taqwa. It's a concept that is elevated in Surah Al-Fatiha. I'll give you a translation of Al-Fatiha so you can join me on this journey. In the name of God, the most gracious, most compassionate and merciful, all praise is due to you. You, God, the entirely merciful and entirely compassionate, sovereign of the day of judgment, it is you alone whom we worship, and from you alone whom we ask help. Guide us onto the straight path, the path of those whom you have bestowed your grace, those who know your grace and what is right, and not on the path of those who have gone astray. Amen. So taqwa, like any word, and especially within the Islamic traditions, it has many interpretations and translations. Some will translate it to consciousness or mindfulness of God. Some will translate it to knowledge of God or piety. And some will translate it to fear of God. But as theologian Fazlur Rahman explains, that fear of God, it's not something that we are afraid of because of what threatens us. That fear is the fear of the consequences of our actions, whether it is the consequences in this world or the next. That fear of God, that fear of our actions, that comes from an acute sense of responsibility, an acute sense of our relationships to this world and to each other. To be a person of taqwa, Rahman reminds us, is to be someone who is fully conscious of what it is we receive, of what we are connected to, of what we are responsible for, and the impact of our actions in light of all of those relationships and connections. To give you a little bit of an illustration, my Islamic studies professor explained taqwa as having a vertical plane and a horizontal plane. That vertical plane, that is the plane on which we remain aware of and grateful for all of the gifts that we receive. Grateful for that divine presence or force, love, nature, spirit, God. And that horizontal plane is the one in which our relationships with others and our world embodies that awareness and that gratitude. You need both for taqwa. Now, for some of us, we don't like the vertical, horizontal image, so I'll give you one that might be a little bit more you friendly. an interconnected and interdependent web of life. We are one nodule on that web of relationships. And taqwa for us, that mindfulness, that consciousness, that fear, is an awareness and gratitude of our place in the web of those gifts, relationships, and reciprocity. And among those gifts is one that many UUs love, the gift of reason. The capacity to know the difference between what is just and unjust, the capacity to choose between what is right and wrong. Taqwa is knowing that we have those gifts and acting on them. And today, as we talk about the day after our Climate Justice Summit, we can think about how our choices, our relationship to the earth have maybe violated our relationships to the earth, to the sacred, to each other. And with taqwa, we can always remember that we can choose to come back to a right relationship, to that relationship of gratitude, reciprocity, and mutual responsibility. Fazlur Rahman describes taqwa as that coalescence of public and private life, where our values, our awareness, our gratitude is reflected in our relationships. Because those relationships exist whether or not we want to acknowledge them. Taqwa, this transparency of the heart, it's not meant to save us in an afterlife. It's meant to save us all in the here and now. Taqwa sounds a lot like another UU concept. Who wants to guess? Oh, no UU theologians in the house. Covenant. Taqwa is a form of covenant and what it means to remember our covenant. What is our covenant with the earth, with people, with the gifts we receive without ever asking? How do we live it out? How do we make the choices that demonstrate our transparency of the heart? How do we embody gratitude and awareness? How do we return to our moral obligation to each other and to the earth? Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer has a suggestion.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Maria Della Rosa, and I'm visiting you all today from Boston, Massachusetts. I work for UUSC, and I had the privilege and the pleasure to be a part of the Climate Summit yesterday, and I'm so incredibly grateful to be here with you all today. I'm going to share this reading from Robin Wall Kimmerer from The Gift of Strawberries. Strawberries first shaped my view of a world full of gifts simply scattered at your feet. A gift comes to you through no action of your own, free, having moved towards you without your beckoning. It is not a reward. You cannot earn it or call it to you or even deserve it, and yet it appears. Your only role is to be open-eyed and present. Gifts exist in a realm of humility and mystery, as with random acts of kindness, we do not know their source. Those fields of my childhood showered us with strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, hickory nuts in the fall, bouquets of wildflowers brought to my mom, and family walks on Sunday afternoons. They were our playground, retreat, wildlife sanctuary, ecology classroom, and the place where we learned to shoot tin cans off of the stone wall. All for free, or so I thought.
Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer is not only a member of the citizen, not only a citizen of the Potawatomi Nation, but also a botanist, and weaves together her wisdom, her doctoral degree, which a lot of UUs will enjoy, and her indigenous teachings, the teachings from her family and the plants. And my favorite part of that reading is that very last sentence. All for free, or so I thought. Because what she reminds us is that the true nature of a gift is that it is not free. Kimmerer writes that gifts from the earth or from each other establish a particular relationship, an obligation of sorts to receive and to reciprocate. Just like we were talking about those strawberries and those runners, she gave back. She gave back by digging places for them to grow. And then they gave back to, and then she gave back. And they had an ongoing relationship. Children stole thunder from me when they said purchasing strawberries in a market doesn't have the same impact. There's no relationship. There's no ongoing acknowledgement of our connection. When strawberries are commodified, we lose our inherent obligation to them, to the people who cultivated them. I have a gift some of you may know. This is a stole that was received at my ordination, following your gift of your teaching and you receiving the gifts of my ministry, and that relationship continues on with reciprocity and love. Kimmerer reminds us that a gift is something for nothing except that certain obligations are attached. Relationship being key. And those fields of strawberries, this stole, teaches something else about gifts, that they move and that they grow everywhere that they are moved, every time that they are shared. Kimmerer writes, the fundamental nature of gifts is that they move, and their value increases with their passage. The fields made a gift of berries to us, and we made a gift of them to our Father. The more that something is shared, the greater its value becomes. And she reminds us that that's not actually an easy concept for us to grasp in a world today where we have concepts like private property and trespass. See, we live in a property and commodity economy. So things like trespass and walls are accepted and expected. But she invites us to move to a gift economy, where land is seen as a gift to all. All for free, or so I thought. She writes, from the viewpoint of a private property economy, a gift is deemed to be free because we obtain it free of financial charge at no cost. But in the gift economy, gifts are not free. The essence of that gift is that it creates relationships. The currency of a gift economy is at its root reciprocity. In Western thinking, private land is understood to be a bundle of rights, whereas in a gift economy, property has a bundle of responsibilities attached to it. So we're at a turning place in our world where we can choose. We are in that space between the dying and the reborn. Our world isn't giving us much of a choice to make that choice. It is time for us to rethink our relationships to each other and to our earth, to no longer commodify, to no longer act without gratitude, to no longer act without an awareness of our relationship, of our covenant to this earth or one another. It is time for us to act with taqwa, to act with that deep, real, faithful gratitude, that what we receive requires us to reciprocate, that what we receive isn't ours forever. What we receive must be shared, must be gifted on. Only in our giving will that gift go on. Only in our giving will that gift grow. We are at that turning, and I invite you to turn and return with me again.